We got a major injury update on Cam Ward's shoulder over the weekend, and it is great news for the Tennessee Titans. I'll break it down on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. On today's show, we got a ton of news over the weekend. We got an injury update on Cam Ward, and it's absolutely fantastic. Also, some interesting comments from the Titans' two best players about who they want in the NFL draft, and John Franklin Myers looking at the Titans. A ton of NFL news that affects the Titans over the weekend. Before I dive into all of it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. The NFL Combine is this week. Your boy will be on site to ask a question to Robert Saleh, Mike Borgonzi, all that, and I'll be bringing all that information directly to you guys here on the show. Also, free agency right around the corner, the draft right after that. Make sure that you stay locked in with the number one Tennessee Titans podcast in the world, Locked On Titans. But with that being said, again, we got an injury update on Cam Ward's shoulder over the weekend. It is absolutely fantastic news. And we get the news from a guy who I always enjoyed who covered the Titans, and Cam Wolfe, who now works for NFL Network. But he said that Cam Ward will be ready to throw and resume throwing in 2 to 3 weeks. Said it in a TV interview over the weekend. He said, quote, that Cam Ward is recovering well. Also mentioned that Cam Ward's trying to eliminate some bad habits that he developed last year with his mechanics and things like that. And all of that should be music to Tennessee Titans fans' ears. Number one, just from a health perspective, we haven't really gotten solid reporting on exactly what Cam Ward's shoulder injury is. We know it's an AC joint sprain, but is it grade 3? Is it grade this? Is it blah, blah? There's been conflicting reports out there. But for Cam Ward to not only not need surgery, which is what I talked about at the end of the season after the injury happened, if Cam Ward can avoid surgery on his throwing shoulder, that is what is the best outcome possible. So this tells us not only is he going to be able to avoid surgery and not need that surgery, but he's already going to be throwing by the time we get into mid-March. I mean, around when free agency is going to kick off. March the 9th, March the 10th, March the 11th. Cam should be good to go and start throwing. That's excellent. When you look at the full timeline, remember, he hurt his shoulder in the final game against the Jacksonville Jaguars when he ran out and scored a touchdown and got landed on whiffs of dirtiness in the hit, but I won't pearl clutch with football and the hits that are out there. But nonetheless, it was a concerning time. But for him to be back throwing, 8 weeks, 9 weeks after that, avoiding the surgery and being ready to go, that is the best possible outcome that Tennessee Titans fans could have hoped for, that the Tennessee Titans organization could have hoped for, and that Cam Ward could have hoped for. And again, it is more than just Cam Ward being healthy. We want Cam Ward to be healthy. That's a simple thing. I don't want Cam Ward to need surgeries and have to rehab and blah, blah, blah. But think about how critical this offseason is, not only to Cam Ward, but to the rest of the offense. If he's throwing in March, that means he can get with his weapons and get with his guys and actually throw a little bit before the Tennessee Titans get back to organized team activities in April. And Brian Dable kept saying, can't wait for April, because that's when they actually get together and get to do some football stuff, get to start installing the offense and all that. But wouldn't it be nice if Cam Ward could have one of those trips to Cabo or one of those trips to a Caribbean island and take some guys with him like Alec Ioman or like Chimdike, like Gunnar Helm, like Calvin Ridley, whoever the Titans sign in free agency. If they could get together in early April, late March, and throw together, that's more than just, I want Cam Ward to be healthy, which is a duh moment. It's we can actually start building forward, getting ready for the season, being ahead of schedule. My concern with the Cam Ward injury is he going to be healthy to work when it's time to install the offense in April? Is he going to be able to get some early work with his weapons and get that chemistry and that cohesion going? Is he going to be able to get his hands on the playbook and then go out and rep those things a little bit with his guys in those, organized Cam Ward events, not necessarily team events? Is he going to be ready for OTAs into mandatory mini camp and then have perfect health going into training camp? It's so critical because it's a brand new offense, a brand new system, brand new terminology. And the other reality that we have to accept is a lot of brand new players. The Titans hopefully have 2 or 3 brand new wide receivers on this roster. Hopefully have a brand new tight end. Hopefully have a brand new running back. We haven't heard any noise about Titans cuts or anything like that. And I'll tell you this, I am begging the Tennessee Titans to start doing something before free agency kicks. Free agency, the tampering period, I believe, starts on March the 9th. Real free agency, when the deals start getting announced, happens on March the 11th. Like, a lot of these contracts that we're talking about that could be potential cuts for the Titans, Snead, Pollard, Woods, the money changes after March the 15th. You want to get this stuff in order before you get to free agency. So I think we are going to start hearing some stuff this week as teams are at the combine and they're talking to player agents and they're saying, hey, would your player be interested in signing with us? Hey, would they be interested for this price? How would this guaranteed dollar amount work? And then once the Titans talk to some of those agents and get an understanding of what the landscape is, then they can make their own decision. So I think we're going to get a cut or two. L'Jarius Snead needs to be cut by the end of the week. But again, Cam Ward being ready to throw in 2 to 3 weeks can allow him to get with some of these guys, can allow him to be ready for OTAs and mandatory minicamp, to hit the ground running with the new system and building chemistry with his new weapons. So again, there's no other way to frame this than this is excellent news. This is truly the best case scenario for Cam Ward having an injury in the last week of the season. Like, that in itself in a vacuum is a terrible thing to say, but the way that it worked out, no surgery, ready to start throwing after 8 weeks, gonna be ready to go in middle of March to start throwing, be ready for OTAs and all that stuff. Again, it could not have worked out any better considering the circumstances, and it gives the Tennessee Titans a ton of clarity and gives the rest of the offense a ton of clarity because they're not gonna have to worry about somebody else being in there and Cam Ward being behind the 8 ball. So it's all great, and I say the 8 ball, and I could be referring to Will Levis behind the 8 ball. You know what I mean? It worked out a little bit better than I even expected there. But with that being said, what will the Titans do in the draft? Well, if we believe a quote that Cam Ward might have said this weekend, and we know what Jeffrey Simmons said earlier this offseason, sounds like Tennessee Titans' 2 best players want Rueben Bain. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or the guesswork. I know for me, I have a lot of self-employment forms, have some other stuff too, but TurboTax handles everything from W-2s to self-employed forms, and they work to get you every deduction possible. For a limited time, you could have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, make sure that you file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to living your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. let's continue today's weekend report edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about the injury update we got from Cam Wolfe of NFL Network. Great news for the Tennessee Titans for multiple reasons. Not only Cam Ward's health, but what it means for all the other players in the offense and the coaches as well. But now I want to talk about more Cam Ward news because there's something interesting that happened over the weekend, and I think it points in a good direction for the Titans. Now, I will tell you this. Full disclosure, I did not hear this quote directly myself. I did not find a video file afterwards. But apparently Cam Ward was doing a card break event, sports cards, opening packs, all that. Not something that I am 100% into, but I know a lot of you guys are. A lot of discussion about cards and stuff in the Locked On Titans Everydayer chat, so you guys should check that out. But if we are to believe my guy Stone Titan on Twitter, if what he says is true, he tweeted this. He was at the event. He said, Cam Ward pulled Rueben Bain's card in one of his packs and said, that's our first round pick right there. That's the quote. That's our first round pick right there. Now, I talked to someone else who was at the event who said they didn't hear Cam Ward say that. Not to say that he did not say that, but just they didn't hear it themselves, so they couldn't confirm it. There's no video evidence or anything like that, so I am going to admit here, we don't know if that's true. I don't want to call the tweeter into question and his integrity or anything like that, but we don't know for certain if that's true. But would it be that big of a stretch? The reality is that's Cam Ward's teammate from Miami. It would not be a shock whatsoever if Cam Ward said that. And here's the thing. I don't think that Cam Ward saying that's our first round pick right there means that Cam Ward knows that that is their first round pick. And because how could you know that? They're picking fourth. It's not like they're picking first and they know that they can take whoever they want. But it would make all the sense in the world for Cam Ward to have said that. And Rueben Bain would make all the sense in the world as the pick. And let me remind you that when Jeffrey Simmons went on Bussin' with the Boys earlier this offseason, one of the best Jeffrey Simmons interviews, one of the best Titans interviews that I've ever seen. If you missed the Jeffrey Simmons interview on Bussin' with the Boys, you got to check it out. I don't pub other podcasts and stuff like that, but it's such a good interview that it deserves its attention if you missed it. But Jeffrey Simmons said, I'd like to have Rueben Bain on my team. Literally said it. Yeah, that Bain from Miami. I mean, it just makes so much sense for the Tennessee Titans. And I go back to Gus Bradley's comment at the opening press conference where he said we want two different kinds of edges. You have a physical edge who can play out on the edge on first and second down and then kick inside to rush the passer on passing downs. You have your prototypical speed edge rusher who could be on the outside all three downs and rush with speed to the quarterback. Now, Rueben Bain fits the first description absolutely perfectly. There are some people who are concerned about the arm length and think that Rueben Bain may have to kick inside to be a pass rusher because his arms aren't very long. Well, if I know that he's incredibly physical against the run and can set the edge with the best of them because of his dominance and his, tenacious mind state, and then I'm worried about the arms, so I move him into the interior to rush. Doesn't that fit that description, the first one, perfectly? That's exactly what you want. And if the Titans were to sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency, who is more of a pure pass, he's a big-bodied guy who can be physical, but he's more of a pure pass rusher, so he could be that speed guy on the outside. If they were to get Odafe Owe, if they were to get Jalen Phillips, if they were to get, I don't think this guy is as clean of a fit, but I always really liked him even coming out of college, Boye Mafe. If they were to get one of those guys who could be every down speed rusher, all three downs on one edge, and then let Rueben Bain be that, and imagine Rueben Bain head up on an offensive tackle. Femi Oladejo is the Sam linebacker next to him. Who is running that direction? and let Jeffrey Simmons be the backside three technique? And then a wide defensive end like Trey Hendrickson. Who's running on the Titans? Who? That's what I want to know. Al's in the chat. Like, it's not going to happen. And if you get Rueben Bain at number 4, it gives you the ability to then hammer some other positions late. And I want to do a mock draft potentially on tomorrow's show, the bonus episode on Monday afternoon. Do a little mock draft before I head off to the combine. But imagine if the Titans were to get Rueben Bain at number 4. And then you follow that up and you get into the second round and you have an Omar Cooper, who I think Omar Cooper, very similar to Brandon Ayuk. Great route runner, good size, great speed. I love Omar Cooper. Give me Omar Cooper all day. I think he's going to go late first round. If Ricky Pearsall goes in the late first round of an NFL draft, Omar Cooper can go in the late first round draft. Some other guys who I think make sense. Chris Brazzell. And listen, I know Tennessee wide receivers don't have great history in the NFL, but Brazzell is different. I'm sorry, he's different. The way he sinks his hips, the way he runs routes, the way he executes outbreaking routes. They let him do some different stuff at Tennessee. 6'5", 200 pounds, that sort of speed, that sort of hip sink, like that's looking like a star wide receiver, in my opinion. I love some Chris Brazzell, some Omar Cooper, a guy who has some drop issues. I admit he's got to clean up the drops. And maybe the Titans aren't interested in that as much because Io has terrible drop issues. DK has some drop issues. Ridley's had some drop issues. Maybe they're just going to be scared away from anybody else that has drop issues. But KC Conception, man, I'll tell you what, the way that guy moves, unbelievable speed, yards after catch, ability, that would be a big boost to the Tennessee Titans offense. You want to go a little further? Chris Bell out of Louisville. Yes, had the ACL tear. Certainly going to knock his draft stock. But that's an A.J. Brown right there. 6'2", 200 pounds. Catch something short, break a tackle, run all the way to the end zone. Chris Bell has such great yak ability, such physicality. Again, A.J. Brown style player, Chris Bell out of Louisville. I would love that. And a guy who I don't think needs to be targeted this high in the draft. I think that 35 would be incredibly rich for this player right now. But we're about to go into the combine, and this guy is absolutely going to nuke the combine. Zachariah Branch out of Georgia. Listen, I'm a Branch head. I think he's going to be awesome. Now, the concerns are he didn't run a diverse route tree in college. A large portion of his plays are behind the line of scrimmage, quick screens, stuff like that. Will that translate? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. The quick, shifty slot wide receiver and the yards after catch demon that is Zachariah Branch fits perfectly in Brian Daboll's offense. He would be our Wan'Dale Robinson if the Titans can't get Wan'Dale Robinson in free agency. Imagine if they were to get Michael Pittman Jr. and then Zachariah Branch. Or flip that. Imagine if they were able to get Wan'Dale Robinson and Chris Brazzell. So you have your big, taller wide receiver and your slot wide receiver. And I've seen some people say the Titans don't need a slot. They have Chim DK. I will continue to explain this. DK is more of a vertical slot. DK is not a precise route runner right now. He can't run those quick option routes, that Danny Amendola, Wes Welker type route. He can't run those. At least not right now. You can't count on him to run those. So Wan'Dale Robinson is more of a traditional slot that also has the speed to go vertically, whereas Chim DK is a vertical slot, and I think DK and Calvin Ridley can rotate a ton at the Z position this year. So you go Bain. You get Hendrickson in free agency. You grab Wan'Dale Robinson and Chris Brazzell. Think if we left free agency in the draft with Bain, Hendrickson on the edge, and Brazzell and Robinson as the additions at wide receiver. And then you go into the third round and you get a Dante Moore out of Florida, a Chris Johnson out of San Diego State, Will Lee out of Texas A&M, Traden Stukes, Igbinosun, Will Neal, I can't think of Neal's, Julian Neal. Like, you get a cornerback in round 3. What an ideal start for the Tennessee Titans. It could not possibly go better than that. So if Jeff and Cam want Rueben Bain, y'all know that I want Rueben Bain as well. So hopefully the Tennessee Titans will listen. But with that being said, again, there's some adjacent NFL news that happened over the weekend. And one of those things is the Titans hiring a new assistant on the defensive side of the ball, and it might just bring them maybe my favorite free agent of the entire crop. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you a chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. You use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board, thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. You guys know, like I know, the best part of the NBA season is right now coming out of the break. And now, not only can your pick cash, but can also send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Cam Ward's injury update. We talked about Cam and Big Jeff, or potentially Cam, can't verify, but hey, let's pretend for a moment. Big Jeff vouching for Rueben Bain in the draft and the domino effect that could have on the Titans draft and all season. But now we got to talk about some other more random news here, because some things happen that aren't necessarily exactly Titans news per se, but they affect the Titans. The first one is with John Franklin Myers, and I guess that is purely Tennessee Titans news. But before we do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Want to remind you guys to join the Locked On Titans Everydayer Club. For the price of a cup of coffee, you can get ad-free versions of the Locked On Titans podcast in your podcast app. You can get added to a Locked On Titans group chat where we're discussing all of this news as it happens in real time. If you want my take on something immediately, you got to get in the Locked On Titans group chat. The link to join is down below in the description. You can go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. Go to lockedontitans.supercast.com as well. But check out the Locked On Titans Everydayer Club. It's just a small way that you can help support the show. But again, want to bring up something very interesting that happened over the weekend. The Tennessee Titans have hired a new defensive assistant, okay? His name is Tanzel Smart. He was on the New York Jets when their Hard Knocks with Robert Saleh happened. Former player being brought on as a defensive assistant. And he tweeted it out, or put it on Instagram, that he was the new coach. Put on his own Instagram. And you know who commented on that Instagram post? John Franklin Myers, the interior defensive lineman from the Denver Broncos, who was the interior defensive lineman with the New York Jets when Robert Saleh was the coach, who also happens to be maybe my favorite free agent target of the entire bunch. Is he as big of a name as Tyreek Woolen or George Pickens or Trey Hendrickson? No. And the Titans don't need interior defensive line as bad as they need other spots. But John Franklin Myers can be the next Danico Autry. And I don't mean that their games are similar. I'm saying a free agent at the value portion of his career who comes in and fans don't throw a party for, but comes in and absolutely goes nuts and is incredibly valuable to the team. John Franklin Myers can be that guy. Imagine him and Big Jeff rushing from the interior. It would be nuts. But John Franklin Myers, in the comment section of Tanzel Smart's Instagram post, says, "You thinking what I'm thinking?" with the eyeball emoji. And then Sebastian Joseph Day responded to that with, "That's what I'm thinking." So Sebastian Joseph Day, who I want the Titans to bring back, who fits perfectly as a penetrating interior defensive lineman in Robert Saleh's system. John Franklin Myers, both in the comments, chirping back and forth with each other under a new Tennessee Titans or a defensive assistant Instagram post. I'm just saying, you connect the dots a little on that, and it seems like at minimum, John Franklin Myers is interested in coming to the Tennessee Titans. And boy, would I love to have him. And he had some of his best years with Robert Saleh in that defense. He knows it like the back of his hand. I will continue to pound the table for John Franklin Myers, as I have been the entire offseason. I've been talking about John Franklin Myers for quite some time now. He just fits perfectly in the defense, with the culture of the team, just fantastic. And to see Sebastian Joseph Day, who I want to come back, and to see a Titans new defensive assistant coach garnering those comments, how could you guys not be fired up about that? Like, I don't want to read too much into it, but I mean, come on now. That seems pretty clear that is Titans related. It has to be. Okay, so that's great news for the Titans there. Now, some other news in the NFL at the running back position. Number one, Breece Hall has not been franchise tagged yet. Hasn't been transition tagged yet. And again, the transition tag is what you should be rooting for if you want Breece Hall at running back, because then the Titans have the ability to negotiate a contract with him, and it's up to the Jets whether they want to match it or not. At least it gives the Titans the opportunity to get their hands on. Now, the franchise tag would be worse because that's exclusive. You can't go out and negotiate. The Titans would have to trade for Breece Hall, and I'm sorry, I'm out on any trade for a running back. No way we're doing that. But it's still good news that it hasn't been tagged yet, because the Jets, maybe they don't want to play with him on the franchise tag. They want to try to get a long-term deal negotiated, but they're not willing to put him on the tag to figure that out. And if he gets to free agency, the tag deadline is March the 3rd. If he gets to free agency, now it's on. Now all bets are off. Now, one other piece of running back news that I thought was important here is Javonte Williams from the Dallas Cowboys got an extension, got re-signed by the Cowboys. 3 years, $24 million. Okay? Now, I think that is relevant because we're looking at Tony Pollard, right? Is Tony Pollard going to come back to the Titans? Remains to be seen. But I think the price of Javonte Williams is critical because, in my opinion, Javonte had a better year than Tony Pollard did. And I mean, you want to look at the numbers. He had 1,200 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. That's a better year than Tony Pollard. So if Javonte Williams had a better year than Tony Pollard and only got $8 million per season, why would the Titans pay Tony Pollard $9.7 million? Do you see what I'm saying? If Williams, having 1,200 yards, gets $8 million, that's driving the price down of all the other running backs. And it means paying Tony Pollard what Tony Pollard is getting paid on the cap doesn't make any sense. Tony Pollard would probably get $5 or $6 million per year right now if he was in the free agent market. So you can't pay him $4 million above that, $3 million above that. You can't. It doesn't make any sense. You could cut him and get somebody cheaper with the $7 million that you're saving on him. So I think the Javonte Williams deal will make it more likely that the Tennessee Titans cut Tony Pollard. And not only that, but it makes it simpler and cheaper for the Titans to go get a good running back. Because whereas you're thinking maybe Kenneth Walker gets $15 million a year, if Javonte Williams only got $8 million a year, Kenneth Walker is probably only going to get 10 to 12. And any savings the Titans can have, driving the value down, and then the Titans being able to outbid other people because they can go to the high end of that range, that's helpful. So weekend news around the NFL, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's other NFL teams operating, all good for the Tennessee Titans. A great weekend for the Titans, in my opinion. But Combine Week is here. I'm going to be at the Combine to ask my questions directly to Robert Saleh, to Mike Borgonzi. Let me know what you guys would ask if you had the opportunity down below. Maybe I'll use one of your guys' questions if it's a good one. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.